Hello? Whoa. Well, it's pretty dark in here, and it's dark outside, apparently. Hello, 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 and welcome to another Daily Code Fun. I am One Lion, and today is Wednesday, September 21. What's all this new stuff? Oh, cool. You can like pick a setting now. That's cool. We are looking out over Las Colinas, Texas, from the Toyota Center. Wow. Pretty. I like it. Anyway, hi everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic fun session where we will do some full stack development on this whatever this is called, financial management tracking application. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Me either. So what we did last was we finished implementing the majority of the functionality for doing an add transaction, specifically a deposit transaction. And the test is still not passing because we're calling add async and not add. So I'll need that. Yeah, it's like, how are you supposed to write test-driven development when you're anyway? So we're just gonna jump into that. Tests this one. So we need to mock yeah, this is really interesting. This is gonna be hard. Ooh. What a sleepy day. Oh, it's so nice though. It's still been such a nice pace for me this week. It feels so much better than last week, and then of course the weeks leading up to it with all of the extra efforts that we were doing. So I welcome this. This is really nice. This is nice. I'll take it. So how am I interesting? Ah, all that I had to do was tell it that I wanted to pass in the cancellation token. Spamtastic! Yay! Okay, so we have our new transaction, which is going to be ID 1, deposit reason 1. The amount is going to be this. So we also need to say that line, oh, that's going to be really hard. So transaction details dot first dot amount. It's going to be this amount. Okay, so one thing that I remembered after doing this is I needed to also create a new transaction record of type subtotal or something. That's really hard. Like, I need a system reserved uh, line item that is for transfers and deposits. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Maybe I just put the amount in either the transfer or the deposit record. Man. Because, like, otherwise, I need to create a line item type that is not deletable for deposit, transfer out, transfer in. Because what I'm using in my current version of the database, in the access version that I use locally on my machine, is the subtotal line item type. And if I'm giving the users the ability to put whatever line items they want, so I'm making all of these deletable or whatever. Gosh, that's tough. I don't know. I don't know. Um, because what happens if, well, I guess. No, because the user would have access to the database directly as well. I was going to say, what happens if I simply just say that this one is going to be ID1 no matter what, and subtotal will always be ID1? Oh, I'm thinking too hard about this already, and we just got started. Yeah, I think my ultimate answer is I'm going to put the amount in the related deposit table, and for a transaction that is a transfer, that also only has one related transfer table, so we're going to put the amount in there as well. Solved it. So we're going to do that using code first migrations, and in order to do that, we're going to say udir deposit. Well, does that mean that transaction details is not nullable? But it doesn't matter that it's not nullable because it can be empty, and it will default to an empty set. So that should be fine. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll go with that. So a deposit and a transfer are going to have amount, and we're going to take the same data type and rules as transaction detail, amount. So this transaction detail is actually a payment detail now, which means that our math for calculating the current balance is going to be a little bit more complex, but it's going to be better in the long run. Because our transfer has the target account. Awesome. I think this is going to work. I hope this is going to work. So yeah, let's just add it. We'll go with it. So we get an amount for deposit and we get an amount for transfer, and we say this is a structural change, so we need to run a migration, which means set this project as our startup project. And package manager, we say add migration, add amount to deposit and transfer. That will generate the diff for us to be able to go from our current snapshot of what the database looks like to what the database would look like with those new records. Using that, we can generate scripts that will show us, and we will generate the scripts just so we can skim through it and make sure that there isn't anything weird happening in them. I also needed to set the migration project as the target project there. Ops. Okay, so this is just adding 2 columns. It didn't do anything weird like try to rerun the seed because we didn't make any changes to the seed. And then if we're going to undo this migration, then we just delete those 2 columns or drop the 2 columns. So let's look at the script. The SQL that's going to be generated to run everything up through this migration. And so this is the first migration, the initial create of everything to include the seed data. Then we see the insert into the migration table that says, all right, tell the migration table that we finished that first migration so that the app knows what migration we're currently on. Then we have this transfers and deposits modification. And then we tell the migration table that we have completed that migration. So we should be able to safely do an update database. And this will use secrets. I love doing this. This will use secrets, so it will use our connection from there. Which is, if I accidentally showed it, that's just a connection to my local computer's SQL Server instance with integrated security. So it's not like I'm showing a username and password or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure that I don't have the port open to be able to connect to this computer from the internet. Anyway, plus you would need my IP address, and yeah. So, looks like the migration was successful. Great. Let's just hop over into the database instance to verify. That is Angie SQL, which we're not currently connected to. Hello, Tiger Pleb. Currently, I only have these. So however many that is, 5, 10, 13 or so, if I counted correctly. So this is Angie SQL. This is essentially my database that I told you we're running, and this is just my Windows authentication integrated security thing. So it's not like, once again, I'm showing you anything secret. But yeah, if you don't know and you do develop using SQL as your database, you can download SQL Developer install it on your machine, and you get pretty much all of the features of the full SQL Professional, whatever it's called, in your dev environment. So you can run a SQL server in your dev environment that should act exactly like your production, your test and production SQL servers that are licensed. Fine, admin. So we're going to take a look at deposit and transfer, make sure they got their new columns. I said columns. I just use VS Code and MS SQL. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely use VS Code. What's going on here? Well, why is the only column in the deposits table ID? That doesn't seem right. That does not seem right. Wait, what just happened? Maybe I expanded keys instead, or it was taking that long to load, so maybe it timed out while it was trying to load. Okay. Anyway, yes, so we see the amount column added to both deposits and transfers. Slavian. So we're done with the migration. I'm going to go ahead and push this as added amount columns to deposit and transfer entities. I wanted to do a local commit. Good grief. I almost always do a full commit and push. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything, but if this was like a project that a team was working on and there were like emails sent out for every push, then it could get annoying because I tend to do a lot of small commits, but I mean to do them locally so that I can push them all at once. Apps. Anyway, so we have that now, which means that we need to update the add so that we can put the amount in our deposit, which would be here, equals, what is this thing called? Yes. Such a cheater. Okay, so that means that I don't need to worry about having any kind of hard-coded line item ID. I mean, what I could do is if I wanted system-defined line items, no, that's still dangerous because again, the user, the person that is installing and running this app or deploying it to whatever server, they're going to own the SQL database, and it's not always going to be the case that the subtotal line item is going to be the same ID or even present. So yeah, we're doing it this way. I'm going with it. I'm going with it. So let's see if we can figure out how to get this test to pass. So and is not null. E deposit reason ID is 1. That was loud. You can't use is not null in a lambda expression. My bad. I don't know what that comment was, 4 or 5. Okay, so we have a target account that should be account ID 1, deposit reason that should be deposit reason ID 1, and that's why I'm putting in here deposit reason ID is 1, account ID is 1, transaction date is going to be this transaction date. I wonder if I can do like to add dot transaction date and then to add amount, because we're hard coding those values up here. So there shouldn't be any issues for like breaking our test in some unknown way. All right, yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that. Okay, so add async should be called once with the cancellation token, and save changes should be called once. This should pass. This should pass. Although, again, I'm still thinking that the thing that might error is we're also calling begin transaction async, and we haven't mocked that, as well as either commit or rollback async. Let's drill down to it because it looks like it failed. So line 27 in the test is this test. Oh, line 37, sorry. Huh? What? Okay. So in this test, in deposit transaction entry service tests, which is line 27, on line 37, on line 30, oh, sorry, the view model dot set. Okay, my bad. My bad. But I could have sworn we went through all of them and fixed this. So where's transfer? So, oh, okay. Yeah, so I did implement the assignment, excuse me, I almost coughed. The assignment for the account ID from what we're selecting from the drop-down box, which is this target account value. But I didn't actually, so the way that I got the property was I told this thing to implement missing properties and stuff. And then that gave me this throw a new not implemented exception. And I forgot to clean that up. So there we go. Now let's try it. And that shouldn't be the error. So you there, right click, run test. Running, 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 running. Okay. So add transaction is still giving me a not implemented exception. No reference exception. Because I'm not passing in a model validator. I need to mock this model validator as well. Crap. That really sucks. An I model validator of a deposit entry view model. Model validator. I don't know how to mock a lazy. Oh my goodness. So this is another instance where I would want to create the service what is it called? Service collection slash service provider. Man, I am so out of my element with these tests. This is okay. So let's say that we're gonna mock the lazy loader of this, and the thing that we're going to mock is okay. So let's do mock the DB context, and before that, we're gonna mock the validator, fluent validation validator for hello Scott, the deposit entry view model. I hope you're having a great day so far. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. Lazy loader. And then the actual mock that we're gonna do on it is ow. Is var model validator mock new deposit data entry view model validator. Is that not what it's called? Scott says, I'm good, just got home from work. What's your opinion on lazy loading with proxies? What I don't know the phrase. I don't know the terminology that you're using. So lazy loading, I'm a fan of overall, but I don't know what is meant by with proxies. Well, if you maybe use different terminology for with proxies or explain what it is, then maybe that's something. Yeah, definitely no expectations or anything. So if you feel like it, then I can give you opinions. that would be something like model validator lazy loader dot setup value returns that. Yes. Okay, so hopefully this will mock the dependency injection of the lazy iValidator, because I should have in my program.cs. Oh man, is this breaking? Like, this creates an expectation that we are dependency injecting an iValidator of t validation blah 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 that gives back a deposit entry view model. So I don't know if that's bad practice or it would be in shared libraries, extensions, service extensions. Yeah, so we are passing back a transaction. Like, would I chain this so that if we asked for a transaction view model validator of deposit entry view model, we would get back the deposit entry view model validator? I think so. Because otherwise, how is this thing going to know to provide this concrete class for this abstract class? And this is an abstract class as well. I don't know. Okay, so Scott was explaining, and he said that lazy loading with proxies is a way of avoiding to write .include. Oh, okay. So just the general lazy loading. Except, oh yeah, okay. So instead of using .include, you're just using Entity Framework's default lazy loading, is what I read that as. So I didn't know that the entire term for that is lazy loading with proxies. I would have thought that you had to do some extra setup to get the proxy, whatever that is. But essentially, the only time that you get the extra information from a related object, so let me just give an example of that. In my transaction, I have this I collection of transaction details as well as all of these other virtual classes. These could all either be queried explicitly and loaded up front when I'm doing a query. For example, in my deposit or in my transaction service, await db context factory dot, and I know you know what this means, Scott. I'm just kind of explaining it to, one, validate that my understanding of what you're asking is what you're asking, and two, explain to other people that might not know what this lazy loading concept is. So if I wanted to get all of my deposits, I would do something like deposits equals. So there's a few ways, of course. You can write link queries in this way. So from t in transactions, select new deposit entry view model. with all of the appropriate stuff filled in from that transaction. One thing that you will see as I'm filling in these properties is we'll have something like, well, let's just start with the easy ones. Account ID will be transaction.account ID because that comes directly from the account table, from the transaction table. We'll also get a transaction date. And a posting date if there is a posting date. And a memo if there's a memo. Except that I don't have posting date in my view model, but that's okay. We'll add it later. Then we have the amount because my deposit view model is a flattened version of this database entity where I have the actual amount directly in the view model. But in the database, I have to go from transaction to the related record in the deposit table and get the amount that way. And so where T dot is, where T dot deposit not equals null. So this is how we know it's a deposit, is when T dot deposit is not null. And so here we know that T dot deposit will not be null because we're filtering on that. So this here, if you don't have lazy loading enabled, will give us a null reference exception regardless. Or it wouldn't give us a null reference exception in this case because we would get no records back because T.deposit would be null in all cases. However, in lazy loading with Entity Framework, when you request the object here, this navigation property, that's, well, and you enumerate this. So you to-list this, for example, which causes this object to hydrate. That's when you get the related deposit record back from the database as well with lazy loading. An alternative to this is loading it up front. So what this would do is it would signal our process to load all of the deposit information up front even before I request that information. And there are a few reasons to do this. So let's say that really we're just starting with a deposit query, and this one I will do with a lambda expression, a link expression. So we'll call this deposits query, and that'll be context.transactions.where x arrows x.deposit is not null. Then we wanted to further filter. Let's just start with this because I'm having trouble coming up with a normal example. So as queryable. Oh, you don't understand the link queries? Yeah. So this is, to me, this is a lot easier to read like this, even though this reads more like SQL, just kind of upside down or turned around. But this right here will not be hydrated yet. So let's say that we actually accepted some other parameters, like we wanted any deposit that is less than a certain amount. So var amount threshold. I don't know how to spell threshold. And it would be $2,000. Anything less than $2,000 is what we care about. Or 2,000 whatever currency we're using there. So then we would say if amount threshold, and this was an optional parameter, for example. So let's say that this is a decimal nullable. So if has value, then filter by that. So we can now say deposits queue equals deposits queue where x arrows x dot deposit dot amount is less than or equal to amount threshold. What data type are you? Double. Double is what I meant. So at this point in time, if we don't have lazy loading and we try to execute this, and we do var deps equals deposits dot to list or to array or whatever you want to put it to, that causes this query to execute, we will get an error about not having any deposits. Either that or we just might not even have any deposits. Yeah, I mean, we would still do something like deposits queue. At some point in time, we would have checked to see that deposits is not null. I mean, I guess we could put it in with this one. And that way we can just get rid of a lot of the errors. So point is, when we try to enumerate this, or not enumerate, when we try to get this query executed, when we try to hydrate this deps to array kind of thing, we will get either errors or just unexpected results where we're not getting anything back because our deposits, for example, might never get hydrated if we don't have lazy loading turned on. So we would need to manually specify directly after the entity dot include deposit. Okay, so the question is, what do I think about the opposite of this, where you don't have to explicitly include, so you are allowed to lazy load, which I think is the setting that you put on, or it's on by default, but you put it on Entity Framework when you were doing the dependency injection setup for it. If you want to explicitly state it. I think you might also be able to do it directly on the context. Ooh, and thank you so much for the follow, Black Uchiha. Would you recommend React plus .NET? I haven't used React, but I know that you can use it with .NET. You can use just about anything you want with .NET. So I can't recommend it because I don't have enough experience with it, but I do recommend .NET. So yes, ish. And hello, Disco. So anyway, the point is, if you have lazy loading, or the question was, what do you think about if you have lazy loading turned on, using it here? It used to be slow, but I also think it's a good idea in the cases of you are building up a query based on passed in information, and you have the potential to not always use whatever that related entity is, whatever that related navigation property is. But if you know, so if you have lazy loading turned on, then you're protected from that. But if you know for a fact that you are going to be using it, then you may as well explicitly state, I'm going to need deposits, even if you have lazy loading turned on. So lazy loading turned on gives you the option to explicitly load all of the associated records from your query. So in short, Scott, the answer is I like lazy loading. Yeah. With Entity Framework. Thus ends my dissertation. Questions? I just got a wonderful looking spam that looks like an access code that is getting marked as junk. Okay. What were we missing here? I was wanting to verify that we are now getting a validator. So we may as well debug this test and see if we mocked the validator correctly. We didn't even make it that far. Oh, wait. How did my breakpoint not get... Wait, what? What? No. Okay, so here's an issue. I'm trying to mock the dot value on lazy, and you can't mock something that... I don't know why. I don't know why we can't mock that one, but we could mock the create method. I have no idea how to mock a lazy loaded dependency injection. I got a message. Setup get? Is that a thing? I was just trying to look it up, but then I got distracted by Discord. Setup get. It is a property, yes. You're absolutely right. So again, more stuff that I don't know about using mock or just testing in general, but this seems like it should work. Thank you so much, Tyron. Let's find out. And I keep wanting to write notes about this, but I just don't know that writing notes is really going to help me that much with remembering it. Dang. So it's still telling me the same thing. So what is the actual line it's coming from though? Line 38, right? Line 38. Yes. Maybe it didn't rebuild? I would have assumed it would have rebuilt. And was this run with debug? No. Okay, come on. Setup get causes the error. Okay, so this is telling me, oh, Tyron for the win, man. Okay, so make this a new lazy of I thing, and what it will return is a new deposit. But now how do I get this into dependency injection though? Is it in the mock of? Can I provide object? That's get only. Can I show you a way of retrieving data? I've never shown it to anyone else, and maybe it's very good or very bad. You absolutely can, but you don't have to at me, I promise. And hello, Ganches. You can always ask a question. Please feel free to. Thank you for asking if you could and being thoughtful, but on this stream, definitely feel free. Feel free. The lazy is not coming from dependency injection. I'm requesting a lazy of. So here's my setup real quick. The setup is for my generic iValidator. I want to pass in this, which is not a good idea. So I'm kind of thinking of getting rid of this and just having these. But regardless, the point is that in my service that is going to use this, which is shared server. Oh, right. That's why I needed that. That's why I needed that. Well, I can still do it this way. Wait a minute. I can do it this way. Give me a second. Okay. I can. I really can. Okay. Okay. So in my service, I am requesting a lazy of, and then that thing that I am dependency injecting. Thanks for the compliment. I will try to be more into it. I'm also still learning things, like I'm learning things that I want to learn off stream because I have this week to be able to do that. But yeah, it's still taking up some of my brain power. So I'm trying to keep up with chat. Of course. So where does lazy ithing come from? So this is an abstract class, a generic abstract class that can take any number of these. So that's why I'm doing it this way, which is fine. Yeah, so this is where I get confused because you need to be able to do DI or to DI the mocks. Absolutely. So first, let me greet Susie. Hello, Susie. What are you developing? We are working on a financial management application from a full stack developer standpoint, where as a solo full stack developer, we're doing the entire process of coming up with all of the information about the project that we want. So what does the project do? What do we want it to accomplish? What language are we going to use? What project types? All of that information, and then designing the UI and doing test-driven development for all of the backend services and all of that fun stuff. So the code base is on GitHub, open source. So let me see if I can read Gansh's question. It's about dependency injection. When I learned it, I saw that you have to use an interface to set up a function that will be implemented by 2 or more different functions, and those interfaces will be injected directly into the constructor. Is that right? So I was learning about some libraries that have dependency injections by annotations, like in Java Spring Boot, for example, at AutoWire. And then there's more. And Jamie's been lurking. Thank you so much for lurking. It's been a while since I've seen you chat, but I really appreciate you being around. All right, now I'm going to follow Tyron's response chain. Don't mock lazy, instead mock the thing that lazy returns. Perfect. So that's step 1.
I got a bad feeling about this.
So don't mock lazy, mock the thing that lazy returns. And then this is going to be a deposit entry view model.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Why do you have a bad feeling about this? I think this is a great suggestion. And how do I tell this thing what to return? So maybe that'll be in the next one. Then you pass the object into, or you pass that into the object when you arrange it. So I have a var model validator mock, which is going to be a new data annotation, or sorry, deposit entry view model validator. So this is the thing that I want created when this is asked for. Oh, hush, stomach, from dependency injection. Okay, I'm following you so far. I will look at your pictures shortly, Scott. I promise I won't miss them. And then following your branch process today is like trying to watch static on TV and trying to follow one dot. Okay, so how do I pass in my recommendation is not use DI to build the software under, or the service under test. All right, so we're going in a different direction with that. I thought this was going in the right direction that I was wanting, but we might be going a completely different direction if the recommendation sounds sound. So let me get back to the rest of the message. But this, to be honest, it's strange because if I dependency inject by auto wired, the purpose of dependency injection with interface will not be ignored. Like if I use @AutoWired, I will just use the instance, not direct in the class, but behind the scenes. I will have to change the classes in AutoWrite. Is it AutoWrite or AutoWired? I think you're mistyping it a few times or once. So as far as Java is concerned, I don't know what dependency injection looks like for that. Excuse me. In C#, which is what this is, you don't have to use interfaces. So here's an example of me saying, here's an interface that or not even me. Let's go to the services instead. That'll be better because that's not my library there. I have a service called TransactionEntryService. And for that TransactionEntryService, I want to provide my server-side implementation when I'm using this extension for TransactionEntryService. However, here you can, well, that's not a good example either. If I wanted to, I could have a specific scope, let's say. I could say, give me just any random class. Any random class. Like response model. Okay, so I could say add scoped to my dependency container response model base, which means if I request a response model base in my constructor for something that is being dependency injected, handled, whatever the terminology is, then I will get the same response model base that's being used for that session. No interface needed. The whole point behind interfaces in this case is I'm able to have one interface, and then now I can have a client-side implementation of that interface, which is called transaction entry service on the client side. And then I can dependency inject that version when I'm doing client-side stuff. And I can have a server-side implementation. Oops. Yeah, this is the server-side implementation that I am dependency injecting when I am doing server-side stuff. So the whole point is that you're adding to this bag of objects that you can reach into and either get a new one every time, a new one for that session, or the same one for the entire server, or whatever the context of the running application is. Sorry, I just got a message. And DC Aggie is here. DC Aggie with the Prime Gaming sub. Thank you so much for that. You know how much Prime Game subs mean to me. Can I pop into voice? Of course you can. I need to set up voice and give you my full attention because it's kind of split between responding to the chats. But yes, absolutely. If you have time. Well, I mean, you wouldn't have asked if you didn't have time, so I will hop down here. What did you hear on stream? I don't know what you heard on stream. I'm not exactly sure what you heard on stream. Yeah, so Scott put in an example there of injecting some concrete class. Oh, my stomach going. That was funny. Okay, I need to be watching this. Yeah, so my unit test should not be testing that ad services. Wait, code. That's not the system under the. What? Oh, that's so confusing. Yeah, I'm in. Just hop into any of the voice channels. Actually, let me finish responding to Ganch so that we get this whole chain done. Otherwise, my brain will still be thinking about that. In Java, auto-wired instantiate the. I'll pull you into the stream room shortly. In Java, auto-wired instantiates the class for you basically, like auto-wired user service. Okay. Yeah, so auto-wired is just the way to do the dependency injection. So it's the same as me saying in a constructor, at least this is what I'm understanding so far. In a constructor, give me an IDB context factory. So in Java, it would be attribute. Is that what these are? Auto-wired IDB context factory finan man context. And then the concrete class or the variable name that you want to give it. So it would look something like this, or maybe it's inside of the method body. I don't know. But that would be how you get the instance of it. But my point is, if I want to change this to another service, I will have to change everything like auto-wired mail service. Yeah, so that's another reason for using interfaces is if you want to change out what concrete class you're trying to use for this, then you inject either an abstract class or you ask for either the abstract class or the interface so that you can configure based on where your application is running from. So in this case, Blazor WebAssembly would be my clients. So I am asking for the client-side implementation here, but if I wanted to replace it with another concrete class, I would just have to update this that it's going to supply in place of that. In place of my initial concrete class. So what I was thinking I would be able to do is in my test, I would be able to say, well, here are all of my mocked up test versions of the interfaces, so supply those. But I don't think that's a thing. Or maybe it is. So that's what we're going to find out. I'm going to go ahead and pull Tyron into the stream room. And I didn't want to bombard you with echoes. Okay. Okay. Maybe it used to, but it doesn't anymore. So I don't do any get required service anywhere anymore. So my act is just one line. Yep. That comes from my base class called class context. And what it does is it does class context of the service that I want. And then that service is what ends up being my service under test, which is system under test, essentially. And this was an MKB thing, so I honestly don't know. But right, so here's the get constructor. It goes through all of the parameters in the constructor, and then it passes in the mocks. So I guess that's what I really need to understand. So yeah, it's not pulling it from dependency injection, it looks like, is the main thing. I just need a mock of. Um, but it's private, so I wouldn't be doing it directly. It'd be this. Yeah, mock of TE. And the thing that's calling resolve is when you do the get for the system under test. Nope, that's also private. So that is on mock of method. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Right. Yeah, well, now it's a abstract class only. Okay, so there's this mock of. It didn't look like it. No, no. So what I'm thinking is we just set both of them up. So we mock this thing out because lazy.value, I'm assuming, just does whatever the dependency injection stuff does, just at runtime. Or not at runtime, when you're using it in the method. So this is the model validator. Crap, but I still don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I can definitely look at that some more, but you're definitely pointing me in the right direction as far as making sure that I read the code that MKB gave us. Right. Yeah. So would your approach be something more along the lines of you do the service builder? Right. 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 Yeah, it's just really hard when I'm still calling something like dot value off of this system provided lazy of, and I need to get back the resolved deposit entry view model validator from dependency injection. I shouldn't have learned about this lazy of. Dang it. Yeah, you would think that that's how lazy would be implemented. Hmm. Oops. Oh, no, 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 no. MKB. Right. Because it really is just mocking the dot value on it to give me back this thing. But we'll see. It didn't. No. Object. Mocked object. Yeah, that'd be a hard one. Yeah, but this here, this mock dot object is going to be the lazy of t, and there is no way to mock the dot value. Oh, yeah. Looking. Mock behavior, arguments. Uh, and is this mock the mock from MOQ? Mock? Yes. Right. And it didn't look like the arguments that you pass in is the concrete class that it would get back. But yeah, I'll do some looking, see what I can find for mock. Yeah, probably shouldn't even use lazy. All right, thank you so much for stopping in. All right, that was Tyron, everyone, if you didn't know. All right, so Ganch did write some more. I understand now. I think I'm just confusing the terms with the interface. I will make a dependency injection inversion. The way I'm making it, I'm just making a symbol dependency injection to not accomplish, maybe, all of my systems or cover all of my systems. Thank you so much. And thank you, Blue Horse, for the follow. Um, where was I? With it just making a simple dependency injection to not, I don't know what that word is, all of my system, not allow. Anyway, but I can make this inversion to make it more decoupled. I understand now. I can auto-wired an interface instead of directly my class. Yeah, so then the only thing that you would need to understand after that is where you do your dependency injection in Java, the setup for it, does it have something similar to add to your dependency injection container for this thing, provide this concrete implementation? Or add to your dependency injection container this specific one and only concrete class type. All right, so I told you I wouldn't forget about it. We're going to take a look at the way to get data that Scott provided. That is, what was your version on it? Just your way of retrieving data. You use an expression of function of the type that you're trying to query, the entity, and then a bool expression, anything that would resolve to a bool that is going to be your where clause. And then you're going to have an entity of, or an expression of function of your entity that will return the entity that matches your where expression, most likely. And this is the overall shape of data that you want to return. And then you have a function iQueryable that returns an iOrdered queryable of that entity. Oh, this is the order by queryable. Sorry. So you pass in anything that is an iQueryable, and then you get back in the order by queryable. So that's part one. And so what do you mean by UI? And then I guess this is what I wanted to see. How do you use it? Case service.get all. You pass in these three individual things. Yeah, okay. Into your get all. So this allows you to make your where clause, make your select, make your project, and make your order by in separate methods or separate statements, essentially. And then pass those into a single method where it puts it together, probably database context dot entity dot case filter dot or dot where case filter dot select case selector dot order by cases ordered, provided it's not null, of course. Okay, so I think I understand that. And then on the server side in your repo, you have just one method that takes in function of t bool, your filter. So in this case, it would be a case. So function of case bool expression, iQueryable, and then you get a cancellation token. And then it gets a response DTO of T out, where here T out would be response DTO of case DTO. So this response DTO is the same as my response model. I remember you saying that. And then case DTO would be the thing that it transforms to. It's kind of weird though, because your select goes from case to case, and you would assume that that would be from case to case DTO. Yeah, and then of course this is the thing that goes from your database entity to the context.entity.where.select.orderby. Oh, that's why. That's how you're going. So I'm sure you're chatting to me, but I'm scrolled up and I can't really see chat. Um, but this is using AutoMapper to go from the entity type to the DTO. Sorry, entity type to the DTO. Got it. Got it, got it, got it. And then the third one is the query helper that we made assumptions about, which is if we have a filter, do query equals query.where. If we have a selector, query equals query.select. And if we have an order by, query equals order by. So there's a there's a thing that I didn't expect to see. Oh, right, because this needs to determine whether we already have an order by, and if we already had an order by, then it needs to be a then by. How do you handle ascending, descending, I guess? Okay, so I think I got through all of your screenshots to understand that. The first image in the UI. Oh, okay, so your order by is your entire chain of order by. So this somehow expands that entire order by. Oh, okay, okay. Because right here, you're taking in your actual everything that you put together so far. And so the end result order by here, by the time you get here, is the transformed query because you would have had the query right here and the query is getting manipulated this whole time. And then you're just saying execute order by the query. Got it. So execute this on query. Put that in for this, and then you get out the iOrder queryable. That's cool. I like it. I think that it would cover a lot of cases, but that there are also other cases that will not be covered. So the ability to do all of your filtering in a dynamic way, I guess. Mm, and paging. And but then again, you are just getting back from this method an iasync enumerable, so you are enumerating it. So yeah, this isn't really handling paging and then doing multiple transforms potentially, or projections, if that is needed. Okay, I have pagination already, but it's done with a third-party library. But yeah, I mean, with this approach, you're still going to enumerate at least async enumerable. Enumerate through as many as you get through before the cancellation token is canceled, all of the results that match your filter. And then also not being able to select distinct. So yeah, in any case, in a general case when you're going to a DTO, from an entity, this will cover the majority of it. Yeah. If you're okay with getting all matches back from the database before transforming it further, such as distinct or aggregation would be another one, grouping. Yeah. So I'm both. Aggregation is stuff like sum, um, and average and max and min, and then grouping is when you do group by something, then you get back an I group of I queryable of or I group of T, which is going to be whatever you are grouping by, and then I queryable of entities that you get for that group. Or function of I don't even remember. Okay, I'm just reading through these bits of chat to see if there's anything that I missed while discussing this. Okay, and now with Tyrant's description that he said out loud, I understand his two comments about you inject your mocks. You have two options. You inject your mocks into your DI stuff before the service under test is created. And the second is don't use DI for unit tests. Instead, new up everything that you need. And then pass in your mocked instances for the thing that you're testing. And I think this is kind of using a third approach, which is, or I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that. But it's using the second one in a setup like you would do the first one, which is create all of your mocked DI stuff. Yeah. We'll figure it out though. Your unit test should not be testing that add service server services code. Right, exactly. And it's not. It's not. And then Tyrant said he heard my stomach growl. Use DI service to grab the implementation, but mock data is what I'm trying to say. So Scott is saying you would want to use DI for unit tests, but provide your own implementations. Yeah, but for stuff like things that are provided by Microsoft, essentially. So lazy of, IDB context factory of, those types of things. Going through, and then we read Ganch's next comment about understanding it. And Science Dreams came in. Hello, Science Dreams. Sorry it took me so long to get to your message, to your hello. I greet you as well. I hope you're enjoying your time, having a great day. And then we also got a follow from Ia Vasquez? IE Vasquez? Vasquez? I don't know. You correct me. The first one? Ia Vasquez? I won't say any more names so that you can say yes or no to the most recent one that I said. Ia Vasquez. And then this is that I want to display in the UI. First image was we saw as UI. Awesome. Awesome. Hope you're having a great day. I will introduce myself here shortly once I catch up on chat, which is all of the stuff that I was talking with Scott about, understanding his code for that, and then giving him my opinion on it because it seemed like he wanted my opinion. And remember, it's only an opinion. I was wrong about doing DI in unit tests, just using the interface and mocking the implementation. We don't DI. Okay, so I am caught up. So for anyone that came in recently or hasn't heard, I am a .NET developer. The short story is I used to work somewhere that I could stream my entire day job, so I did a lot of Blazor development showing actual work product, and it was in converting legacy code in a different language over to .NET, and I went from JSP to MVC to Blazor, and I've been using Blazor ever since. I got a new job, so I haven't been able to stream my work, so we picked a project and we're going with it, and that project is this financial management tracker that I have on GitHub, and I may as well go to the page now. And what we did is we set up this GitHub repo, gave ourselves some requirements for what this application should do. Then we sketched out quite a few things. We sketched out the project structure. Ow, that's bright. Oh, let me open it first. Load. Loading. Oh, I guess we can have it over here while it's loading. Bright. It's so bright. It makes me look bright. That's how bright the screen is. So we came up with the project structure, like so. And this just kind of gives an overview of what all of my projects are structured like, especially when I'm doing Blazor WebAssembly. Even if I wasn't doing Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor Server, this whole top row could be any number of project types. This could be a Maui project, it could be WPF, it could be WinForms, it could be a console app, it could be Blazor WebAssembly. But the point is, if I can use Blazor UI, then this second layer is going to be the same no matter what. So this is my services layer. Sign me up for the console app. Yes. The console app would not use the Blazor UI unless, of course, I was writing my own way to present the UI. It would most likely just have the libraries and then have its own front end implementation that would be console driven. So you're maybe interacting with the app using command line and yeah, just that. But it's still running exactly the same services. The shared library is all of the models, all of the interfaces that are used throughout the entire application that need to be accessed anywhere. And then there's the shared service version of it, shared server version of it, sorry, that is only the implementations that are used on the server side of things. So things that have access to system resources like disk or network or database, all of those types of things that would be handled by the code, by the implementations of the interfaces in the shared server. And then the database itself, you can only get to through the shared server project. You can get to the database entities, which is a separate project as well, from the shared project. Helpful, I know. So anyway, that's just my normal project structure for just about everything that I do. Then we came up with what do we need in the database, sketched out something that kind of looks like an ER diagram, but not really. Then did some UI concepting, which is what screens do we think we need and what might those screens look like. And I drew heavily from an existing app that I have. So I use Microsoft Access to track my finances. And it's just a few forms that are put together that allow me to input various financial transactions. Like if I pay for something, if I am depositing money into one of my accounts or transferring money between two accounts. So that's where this idea came from. But yeah, so that's what all of those are. And then the next thing that we did was we said, okay, we have some idea of what the screens would look like. So let's go ahead and put something together a little bit more because I want to get better at doing UI design. I'm not good at it in my opinion. And so we put together this Figma board. and came up with a few options. We have this neumorphic design. I didn't like it for the landing page, but I might like it in other places. We may still use it. The flat version of it, and then this colorized version of it. And this is the one that we ultimately went with. We're thinking of maybe changing colors, not using this color scheme as our dark mode. I don't know. I'm starting to like it a little bit, but I'm still not the biggest fan of this green. I wanted it to be more blue, but it looks green to my eye. You know? You know? So then we went from there to the actual application itself, and we started implementing some of the UI design since we had a pretty solid UI. And that looks like and because I didn't want to overwhelm myself completely, uh, I wanted to do two things. So I wanted to learn the UI design and get better at it. And the second thing was I want to get better at doing TDD or just testing in general, but I was doing it through learning TDD as well. I didn't want to overwhelm myself and do TDD on everything. So I'm only doing TDD on the services. So on all of my server-side services, those are the only things that I'm going to write tests for first, and then the implementation until the test works. But that means learning the testing libraries. But yeah, you can see that we pretty much just sketched it out verbatim. This is our landing page. Should look just about the same, aside from, scaling. So something more along these lines. We also added this kind of footer section since I don't have a menu bar to get around, and I wanted to get to the data entry pages easier. And then the data entry pages, once again, just kind of looking almost exactly like this, except that I didn't put in the account overview section yet, but that's fine. We'll get there eventually. And then we set up this little transaction history table. But yeah, if you want to see any of those, I did put all of the videos from our previous streams on my YouTube, on my YouTube. And all new videos get posted there 24 hours after the stream so that I don't violate the terms of service or whatever it is. EULA, TOS, AUP, I don't know, for being an affiliate with Twitch. Your content has to be exclusive to Twitch for 24 hours, blah, 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 blah. Problem is, none of those videos are edited, so they are a lot of me talking to the stream and not really showing work on screen because I'm too busy talking, but it's there. You can skip through all of the parts that don't interest you and maybe make it through each video in like 5 minutes. But the content is there for how we got to the point that we're at. And so now I am at the point where I am trying to mock this lazy of t. And the thing that I'm trying to set up is the get. Which, oh, wait, this looks different. All right, what was this generic that it was that it told me I can use? Hello, setup get. The generic is T property. And the property type, oh, property type is going to be the value, which is going to be, oh, I wonder what it uses for value. I don't really know if it's going to be this or if it's going to be the thing that is in the of t. And then the function itself is, I wonder if this is optional when we use setup of generic. Interesting. So I think what I do is I say value and give back model validator mock like this. No, what's this first one? Oh my goodness. The first thing is a function of lazy model validator or lazy transaction view model validator. Oh, okay. This actually tells me what the type is, which is a transaction view model validator. Cool. Oh, man. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then this should just be as transaction validator. Deposit data entry view model. Okay, so I'm going to change this up just a little bit to make it easier to cast, like so. And this is model validator mock, no wonder. Yeah, and this is what I was afraid of because like, I don't know, maybe this will work. Like the example that I have to work from is we set up and then the property itself and then what the thing returns. Which is kind of not what I'm doing. Yeah, dang it. So this is where I would do x dot value returns. Man, and this is where it's breaking every time so far. I have no idea. I really, really, really don't know. Set up. No idea. No idea. So the issue that I've been getting is I'm trying to mock the dot value property on this lazy loader. Oh, right. And there was something down here that I left as an error. But it's telling me that I can't mock value because it's not overwritable. Wait, why didn't that build? It should have built at minimum. Oh, it's this line. Okay. Debug. Okay, so you have mock repository.setup x get byte, but that's mocking a method. This is well, this is also mocking a method, but it's mocking the get. Okay. Survey says no. So it's telling me that I can't mock dot value because it can't be used in setup verification expressions. Oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, Scott. Absolutely. Gosh. The only thing that I'm trying to figure out is with this little helper that MKB gave us. Dang, I don't know. Maybe, but no, how is it going to get that? Model validator. Yeah, how do I get my deposit view model validator? Oh, oh. I think what I'm supposed to be thinking here is something that was mentioned earlier where I'm not, so like Tyron said, I'm not trying to test whether this add, not you, that this add server services dependency injection thing works. So since that's not something that I'm testing, I shouldn't worry about it. Same thing here. I am not testing whether or not this model is going to be validated. I would test the model validation in a separate test. So I'm going to mock setup, model validator, setup, validate, which is going to be way down here apparently. But I'm thinking that I don't use either of these two lines at all. Yeah, I don't even need the concrete class in there at all. Okay, I get it. I get it. So where's my object? When we try to validate this object, we're going to return new validation result. Actually, we're going to return new deposit entry view model. No, validator. Oh, I got this. This validate deposit to end. Okay, okay. I think that's good. The only part that I'm not sure of what's going to happen is when we call dot value on model validator. Here we go. Come on. One of these has to work. Oh, hey. Did that thing finally finish? Oh, no, it's waiting for user input. Of course you are. What? Error? I don't error. You error. Could not copy file. Oh, because I'm running. Duh. Shh. Don't tell anyone. Debug. Hush phone. We're gonna get this done. Oh my goodness. Oh, I hate it when that happens. So, my phone can unlock with my eyes, and I have the rotating lock screen thing, and it's cats. And there was this really, really pretty cat that I wanted to show you guys, but my phone saw my eyes, and it was like, unlock. Got it. It was like, jerk. Um, what? How are you still getting the same error? Line 77. Abstract validator of deposit entry view model dot validate may not be used in setup. This is really annoying. But the thing is, if we put the time in now and we understand how this works, it's not going to be as annoying in the future. That's the goal. We'll understand how to write tests and we'll get better at it and better at it. Damn it. I don't have a way to mock this validate step. So what happens if I just don't mock it at all? F11, F10, F10. So this thing here is going to give us an error because model validator dot value is giving a system missing member exception. Lazily initialized type does not have a public parameterless constructor. Oops. Okay, so we're going to have to explore this some more next time. We're going to get it figured out. Either that, actually, you know what? Let's just do one small thing to keep this thing from breaking on us, which is instead of using lazy, let's just not use lazy. Because the fluent validator should not be that hard. Actually, let me do it this way. Duplicate, comment, model validator. I guess it's going to be the same either way there. Okay, so this is where we should be able to mock it correctly. We are doing model validator. And there should be a .validate method on model validator. But we also saw, oh my gosh, what I am supposed to do. We also saw that we can't mock this. That this is going to give us an error here. Oh my goodness. We're going to hit the line where we're trying to mock the validate method, and it's just going to break because it's like you can't mock validate. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with that. So, again, we'll figure it out. We'll come back to it tomorrow. I'm not giving up. We're going to figure out how to do testing the right way. But for now, that's going to be it from me. Yes, what God said. So, I stream Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time until 12:30. Next week, I'll be back on the schedule where Tuesdays, that'll be at 1:30, I think. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Gizmo. Gizmo. So I will be back again tomorrow. We will learn some more about testing. This is more for me than you guys, of course. I want to get better at this. For the rest of today, I'm going to continue learning the things that I've been studying over the past couple of days because it's fun and not because I have to, but because I choose to. We're going to go ahead and set up a raid. Thank you, Sonic Castra, for the follow. We're going to set up a raid over to Finite, and you'll enjoy having us there. If you guys have not seen Finite, stick around. He is working on the Game Jam game. I think it's the Game Jam game that he's doing for Turn Jam, but it could just be some camera filter thing that he's been just wanting to put together, giving himself a goatee, soul patch, beard, stuff like that. It's cool stuff. It's stuff that I would love to learn how to do as far as adding content to our stream, making it interactive. So that's why I'm learning Unity now. And also because I want to learn Unity for AR dev and stuff. But anyway, that's it. I'm going to peace out. I hope you guys have fun. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you when you come back by. Until next time. Ciao for now. I think he's about to leave, by the way. So we're going to go to him and then whatever his rate is going to be.